Jennie, BBC One presenter, and now an author in your own right.
No, who knew?
You've written a book.
I have. I've written an actual book.
You
Like,
have?
it's really published and everything.
How to read F1.
Yeah, it's very tangible. Once you actually have a book that you've written and you can see a name on it, and I think the designer's done a really good job with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's alive.
It is. It feels really good. It feels lovely to start with before you even open the pages. Before you even open it.
Yeah.
And it smells fabulous.
New books, there's a certain thing about them, isn't there? But
It is.
yeah, I'm really proud of it.
It is. What gave you the idea? How come you've written a book?
So it wasn't really my idea. One of my bosses at the BBC got in touch and said, "Oh, do you fancy writing a book?" And I'd had a stroke 6 months earlier, so I was like, "No, that's silly. I can't write a book. I can't read. I can't write. I can barely speak." So I sent a very nice email saying, "I don't think I can do that." And he suggested that I just meet the publisher. So I did, and kind of the rest is history. She kind of created the concept and said, "What do you think about writing a book?" And together we came up with writing an A to Z book, which was a much easier challenge than actually having to have a book that flows for someone recovering from a brain injury. So I gave it a go. I wrote a couple of chapters, sent them off expecting nothing. And the next thing I know, I've got a contract, I've got a deal, and I'm writing a book. And now I have a book.
You do.
I did a thing.
And it's a great thing, absolutely. From my point of view, it's a combination of facts and anecdotes from personal experiences. How did you come up with the name?
So How to Read F1 wasn't my title. So they came up with a name. And I was like, how to read F1? I'm not sure about that. But the more I used the book as a tool to recover from my stroke, the more I kind of got it. And I mean, it does what it says. I mean, you can read this book and hopefully it will give you an insight into my world in F1, lots of information as to how F1 works, what tyres are, what aerodynamics are, all the things that you might not know. And then a lot of things that you would be surprised and you thought, oh, I know everything. But actually, there's lots of things in there that I think even the most ardent fan wouldn't have known before they picked up the book.
Absolutely, I agree with that wholeheartedly. What did you enjoy most about writing it?
I thought it brought back a lot of really fond memories of my time in the paddock, and I couldn't be in the paddock, and it felt very strange. It's my family and my other family, and my work family, and not to be there, not to be speaking to the fans and listeners on a regular basis. I felt like there was part of me missing. So by writing the book, I could re-engage with the people at home and try and do something useful, even though I felt totally useless. So yeah, it gave me a lot, and hopefully it's given readers a lot too. Yeah.
You mentioned in the introduction that you've been working in Formula One in motor racing for quite some years. So how did all that begin?
So I worked for the BBC a long time ago after I just qualified as a journalist. And I worked my way up. I worked at regional radio for the BBC, which was a fantastic place to learn. I have to say, I feel for the people who aren't and don't have that opportunity anymore, because the way the BBC is now structured, it's slightly different. But I did everything. I said yes to every opportunity. And I ended up covering some Speedway down in Bridgewater. And I hadn't been to Speedway before. It's such a random event. So I went and quite liked it. And one evening, one of the guys that was there came into the commentary box and said, do you fancy doing some long track with me? I was like, yeah, don't know what it is, but sign me up.
What's long track? Yeah.
Say yes to everything. So I did some long track and it ended up on Sky, and I just carried on going up and up, and I finally got a phone call saying, would I like to fill in for Natalie Pinkham when she was on taking some leave? And would you know, the first race I was asked to do was Canada 2011, which was the longest race in F1 history.
Still is,
so yes,
isn't it?
it was a baptism of fire coming into the F1 paddock, not knowing anyone, and having to do a whole broadcast for 4.5 hours.
It must have been quite daunting.
Yeah.
Do you have any favourite moments or standout moments from any, if you can pick one, you know?
I know this is always so hard because I love my job. I love F1. I love my job. And to try and pick out something is really tough because there's something special about every race. When you walk into an F1 paddock for the first time and hear that bloop, 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 as you put your pass against the turnstile, and even just going through that turnstile is magical, and you end up meeting some really strange people as you walk in and out. I remember in Australia, Leo Sayer was there, of all people. And if you're about 90, you might remember Leo Sayer.
I remember Leo Sayer.
Yeah, if you're quite like Gen Z, you might not know who he is, but have a look up and you'll see his big curly hair. He was kind of a singer. But if I had to pick one moment, it would probably be Abu Dhabi 2021. Quite a controversial moment in F1's history. And I was there, and I was able to be breaking news, using my contacts, doing everything you're taught to do, and living that moment, which it spoke to so many people, didn't it? The end of that season, everything that had gone into that season so far to make it so explosive.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an incredible moment to actually be there.
I think it kind of summed the whole season up, because it had been a season of some quite controversial moments anyway during a few different races, and then of course the final race was just incredible. It was just reflective of the whole season, wasn't it?
And we couldn't make it up.
No.
It was something so extraordinary.
Do you really understand what happened at the end of that race?
That's a great question. I think so. Having gone back, spoken about it so much, do I agree with what happened at the end of that race? That's a very different question. I think I'm not even sure the FIA really understood what was happening at the time. But in reflection, I think we can all look back and see what happened, what possible mistakes were made, and learn from it.
Yeah. I can't say any more. I can't say anything either, because I was there as well, you know, and I was watching it as well. And I was just stunned. I had nothing to say. I went back quietly to the hotel by myself. I didn't even go out afterwards to what was arranged. I was that stunned by what I'd seen. I thought those days were over. I thought we'd seen the back of those kind of, shenanigans, should we call it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that a good word?
Yeah, it's a great word. And I mean, I suppose the positives are everyone had an opinion on it. And we're not just talking within the world of F1, the wider community, sporting or otherwise. It was news headlines. And when you have that sort of breakthrough moment in a sport, whilst you can look at it and go, well, that wasn't fair, that wasn't right, actually, it made our sport grow.
Yeah.
And as a journalist in that, yes, we can talk about it and revisit it. But actually, we can't change it. That's not how it works. They tried, they appealed, it went away. So I think as a F1 community, it was a standout moment for many reasons. and we should never forget that. But we have to move on because lessons have been learned, and as you say, hopefully no more shenanigans. But do I think that and believe it?
No. I don't either.
This is F1.
I know you must be asked this a lot. I know people do get asked this a lot. What's your favourite circuit and why?
Favourite circuit? Obviously Silverstone is up there. Suzuka, probably, for lots of different reasons. There are just so many. Hungary's great. Austin's great.
I love Austin.
An
I love the city.
amalgamation. I mean, yeah, what's not to love? The calendar now, it's packed, but some of those circuits are just brilliant. And it makes me feel sad when we go to a circuit that isn't brilliant and doesn't reflect the level and standard of racing that we're currently fortunate enough to have. But there are lots of good ones. I'm not going to pick one. I can't
pick one, no.
They're all like children. I can't pick one. That's mean.
What are your thoughts on the recent news of Monaco and the changes that they're bringing in just for Monaco, just for that one race?
Why not? Try something. That's what F1 is never scared to do, is try something. And they learned from qualifying. They tweaked it, didn't work. Let's try something else. They keep moving with the times, and it's a very forward-thinking championship. And I think we all know Monaco doesn't work as a race, as a spectacle. It's dull. Yes, you've got all the glitz and glamour around it, and that's romantic, and it's a really historic track, and you can feel the presence of all those amazing people throughout the time of history in F1. But it's not great racing. So let's mix it up. Let's try something new and see if it makes it better. Why not? Yeah,
it almost feels like when you're there, first of all, I felt like I was in a film, a movie set all the time. Your wind's blowing in the hair all the time, and it's fabulous. But you feel like the race is kind of a secondary thought in a way, because you've got all the rest of it happening. You've got the harbour, you've got the yachts, you've got the parties, you've got the people hosting, and it does feel like that the race is kind of secondary. That's the least important part of the weekend. Whereas I feel like if the race does, up its stakes a little bit, then probably be a bit more exciting, won't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a good move.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Definitely.
We'll see.
No, you've got some facts in the book, and we picked one out particularly. And the fact I want to talk about is on page 12. So if you just read that out for us.
I feel like I'm in Jackanory or bedtime children's reading.
Again, some people aren't going to know what that is.
Yeah, that's true. Look it up. It's what the internet was made for. So throughout the book, I've put in some little chapter headings. They're greyed out, and they're did you know sections. And that was one of my thoughts. I thought, I've got an idea when I was writing A for Australia, and I just thought, oh, did you know? And I just wanted to impart some facts on people that were a bit standout and a bit different. So my fact for A for Australia was, did you know did you know an Australian has never won the Australian Grand Prix?
I didn't think I really knew that unless somebody said that out loud. Yeah, I didn't think I did.
It's a strange fact, and we have seen people on the podium. I mean, they've lost the podium as well, because Daniel Ricciardo, of course, was excluded from the race that he finished second for a irregular fuel flow, which is not easy for me to say.
You said it.
Yeah. So that was the kind of closest we've come.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll have to make a correction to that this year.
Yes. Yeah,
we'll find out very soon. Yeah.
And of course we're thinking Oscar, but it could be Jack Doohan.
Yep.
You never know.
Yep. I mean, it could. You really don't know whatever happens in Australia. It can be a bit freaky, and with it being the opening race of the calendar again,
I'm quite excited about that too.
I know, it's where it should be.
Yeah.
You should start at an unearthly time, having bacon butties on your sofa, in your PJs, listening on the radio, and watching at the same time. Sync your TV up with your radio coverage, and it's perfect.
Exactly.
And that's the way it should start. And I love that they've gone back and been bold and said, okay, well, not take the money of an opener in a Middle Eastern country, and we'll go back to Australia. So yay for Australia, but it is exciting.
Yeah, definitely. You've put another little known fact a little bit later on in the book, and that is that Valtteri Bottas is a Lance Corporal. Like, how did you find that out, and explain?
So I have to turn to B for Bottas,
B for
which
Bottas.
is in kind of at the beginning of this section.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's did you know it's Lance Corporal Bottas. Valtteri spent a brief time serving in the Finnish army before finding his place in F1. So it's compulsory for all young people in Finland to go and serve in the army and do some service
like a
time.
national service.
Yeah,
type.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how I found out that he was Lance Corporal. Although I have to admit, I've never called him that in the paddock. He was very
we
kind.
should.
Yeah, we did some press together when the book came out, yeah, I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't say Lance Corporal Bottas. But maybe now he's a reserve driver, I can. I mean, he's a really fun guy. And you can't really imagine him as Lance Corporal Bottas, but that's the thing. Some of the drivers you joke around with and you get to know quite well, as I'm sure you've done too. And then when they get into that cockpit, they change so much. And Valtteri is one of those people who was very down to earth, very grounded, spoke well, had a laugh, and then changed persona as soon like that fighting spirit. And you can't imagine exactly what it's like to be in that cockpit, to be a driver. But as journalists, we try our hardest, don't we, to get that little bit of that truth, that what makes them tick out of them.
Yeah, definitely. That's really fascinating. I mean, what can't the man do anyway, you know? You wrote something here on page 65, and it's right near the bottom of the page, about one of your experiences. I can't remember if this is one of your first experiences. And you said how a grid girl fainted, and then you had to stand there with her board. Like, what happened there?
It's very surreal. I think I've still got a picture of it actually up in the downstairs toilet. I think it was Germany, and it was really, really hot. It could have been Japan. No, I think it's Germany. This is a pointless story. One of them anyway. And it was baking hot, and these grid girls are made to stand there for a long time, exposed. They don't get a break. They can't. There's nowhere for them to go. They don't get an umbrella like the drivers. They just have to stand out there. And I could see she was like listing. That's not great. And I asked someone, do you think you've got some water? And they scurried around trying to find water. I mean, why are they standing out there for an hour at least without any water is beyond me. But it's all about the looks. And she just fainted. So I was holding her board at the time. So I just stood there holding this board, and it was for Kobayashi. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this board. So I at some point, some other lovely, amazing lady came out and held the board, and I was able to relinquish my role as a very part-time grid girl. But yeah, I mean, these are the strange and crazy things that happen when you happen to be on a grid, and not with a camera facing at you, because I'm a radio reporter. You don't have to have that camera there next to you. So I was able to help out.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Isn't it great? I'd love to be a grid girl. I think it'd be fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I did them a disservice by hosting a show and producing it that was talking about grid girls, and subsequently grid girls disappeared from F1.
I know.
So I take kind of some form of responsibility for that. But I feel like that was a good thing, and it was a good thing for F1, because I don't feel like they were using those girls to the maximum. They couldn't speak to the drivers. They couldn't speak about the brand. They weren't ambassadors. They just had to stand there mute and look pretty. And as the STEM projects and F1 Academy and all of these different endeavours to try and get equal representation or better representation, I think the place for grid girls isn't in F1.
Yeah.
So I stand by my my programme, which debated it, and I stand by the decision of F1 to actually move forward in a different way.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry,
just move
grid
with
girls.
the times. Move with the times.
Yeah.
Well, you have to, don't you? There's another fact in here about Bert Mylander, and you've written he's been a safety car driver for 25 years.
It's crazy. He's so good at it.
I know. It's great. That's longer than Alonso's been in the sport.
It's longer than everyone.
Everyone.
He's outlived a lot of people, and he's a great person, great guy, great knowledge. And he has driven a lot of laps. A lot of laps.
If you were to put him in a midfield car in a race, where do you think he'd finish? Because he must know those tracks really well.
He does know those tracks really well, and he can drive a car around those tracks. But actually being in an F1 car rather than a Aston Martin or Mercedes, which he drives, it's very different motor skills, very different core memory, muscles that you have to hone to be an elite athlete. And I think it's easy to look at them and think, oh, well, any top driver can get into an F1 car and prove themselves. I think we've seen time and time again that actually they can't. Yeah. And certainly at the moment, I think the field in F1 is possibly one of the best we've ever seen. Pay drivers aren't there at the minute so much. So, we're really fortunate to see so many top level drivers, but it means it's very hard to get into the sport.
Yes. That kind of leads quite nicely, really, into me wanting to ask you about rookies, because you have a section there about rookies. And specifically, you mentioned Ollie Behrman, who had a phenomenal start last year at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix for Ferrari when poor Carlos had his appendicitis and his appendix out. Do you feel that Ollie will end up in that Ferrari seat? Is he that good?
It's really hard to tell. I'm really excited about what the rookies can bring this year. 5 rookies coming to F1, which is an incredible number, really. Bearing in mind we had no driver changes last year. There's 10 driver changes this year. So we're already starting in it feels like a healthy place with lots of new pairings and different combinations. What can Behrman do in that Haas? Impossible to know, because we don't know what that Haas will be able to do. Some years they come out the box absolutely flying. Will this be one of those years? Don't know. But it'll be really good to see. And I think he is the real deal. Yeah. And I went to the Autosport International show. You should have seen the queues around the whole building just to get a picture, an autograph and a selfie with Ollie. He has an amazing fan base. And I think the rookies coming through do. The F1 is changing so quickly. And I think let's see what happens with Lewis going to Ferrari. But there is a lot of excitement about Ollie and whether he'll end up in that Ferrari. I just want to give him the space and time, I think.
Not too much pressure.
To find his feet at Haas and then see what the future brings. But he'll put so much pressure on himself. I don't think we need to put any more on.
No, I agree. Now, Liam Lawson is considered a rookie, but it's a bit dubious, isn't it, the amount of races he's done. But you've done a quote. I'm going to quote you from your book. And you said, partnering Max Verstappen is like the kiss of death. Sorry, Max. How do you think Liam's going to fare against Max?
Look, watching Max is like watching a whole series of traitors. And he just picks them off one by one. And it's because he is so good. Yeah. He has got that team working around him. and he is one of the best drivers ever. So of course he is going to outlast his rivals, and that second seat is problematic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how will Liam Lawson do? Who knows? I wasn't expecting them to put him up quite so quickly. I did have a feeling that Perez would go, but exposing Liam at this point into his career, when he has not had that experience in those formative years in another car, it's high risk.
Yeah.
But he'd have been up for it. And all of these drivers know it's high risk when you get that phone call saying, can you come? But if you don't do it, someone else will. Yeah. And they might just be that special person that can bring it to Max. I'm not sure there's anyone at the moment out there who can. But
I think he's the best candidate out of everybody, including the experienced drivers, just through what I've seen in Formula 2. When I was reporting on him in Formula 2, and he came into Formula 2 as though he'd been there for years. He comes with just such experience, even though he doesn't kind of have it as such.
Yeah.
And I personally feel like he will really, I'm going to take a chance and say it out loud, that if anybody can be unaffected by Max, it will be Liam.
Oh, that's interesting.
And Liam can fight his own. Liam can fight his corner. I've never once felt he's ever done anything that I've felt was controversial.
Right.
But he's certainly got his elbows out, and he's certainly fought for his spots, you know, in those races and in that grid. And I like him. I think he's a phenomenal, steady, you know, your Jenson Button kind of driver, you know, even your Bottas kind of driver. Very steady, very solid, you know, and I'm really excited. So that's go on, good. Liam.
Yes, I think you should be excited, and I think he is a talent, and it will be interesting to see how he manages that relationship with Red Bull and Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, and the politics that goes with Red Bull. And I think he's stepping in at an incredibly hard time.
Yeah.
With everything that's happened. So yeah, fingers crossed for him, because as you say, I think he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see another young Red Bull driver coming through and getting spat out at the other side. But
like we've seen so many. Luckily, some are still around though, aren't they?
Yeah,
so,
that's true. It feels like the next series of traitors is just about to begin.
Well, Liam, well, we love you, Liam, so we've got your back.
Yeah.
So talking about somebody else controversial, you've mentioned Michael Schumacher a couple of times in the book. And can you elaborate on what he was like in the paddock, because you've interviewed him?
Yeah, I mean, Michael Schumacher, what can you say, one of the greatest F1 drivers ever, and such a very specific human. He was very meticulous. And he had these eyes that could be very cold, and they could look right into you and through you. And when you got the chance to do a one-to-one with him, where you're sitting there, it's just you and him in a room, it does make you go, oh, just a little bit. And I think it's good to be scared in those situations, just a little bit. It does make you go, oh, just a little bit. And I think it's good to be scared in those situations, just a little bit, because it keeps you on your toes. But he's fascinating, a fascinating man. Everyone thinks that Lewis Hamilton brought scooters to F1, but actually it was Michael Schumacher who was the one who first brought in the scooter, because he didn't really like the fans being all around him. And at that time, in the height of the 90s, when he was so successful, they were all around him. And it got to the point where he couldn't move. Yeah. So I think he felt like having the scooter was some layer of protection for him to just get around without, flocks of people just weighing his time up. And time is valuable in F1. It's time what you could be with your mechanics, your engineers, team principals, all of those people. And if you're standing there and you can't get to them, that must be really annoying. But he was a phenomenal talent. And I'm just so privileged to have been able to spend time with him. We did some Race of Champions events together as well. And yeah, he was just a very inspirational person, and I'm very sad with everything that's happened to him.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Yeah, I recall seeing him 21 years ago in the Australian paddock when it was the first race of the season. And he was walking through the paddock with his helmet on, just to try and stay, focused and in that zone, and to not be distracted by what was going on around him. And, there was a couple of comments that were negative because he was walking through the paddock of workers, of people, that he knew and he worked with. But my response was that to achieve what he's achieving, he has to have that level of focus. You have to respect that, and he was, you're absolutely right. He was so unique. Still is.
Yeah.
You placed him third in your top 10 of GOATs. Not first. No. So who are your top two and why?
Right, let me turn to my
let's go to the GOATs
page and find my... So GOATs was an interesting section. And I said in the book, we could argue until the wee small hours over a drink or two about the definitive list of F1 GOATs greatest of all time, and maybe we'll get the chance to do that one day. But for now, this is my top 10 based on a mix of their results, skill and personality. So don't hate me. don't do that.
It's your book. You can do what you want.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't not do a list, and I battled long and hard over which drivers to include, which not to, and then the order. And this took a long time, even though it's not too many words. But I've gone with, as you say, Schumacher at 3, then Sir Lewis Hamilton at 2, and in first place, for me, Ayrton Senna. It will always be him. It was only ever going to be him. Yeah. I wasn't lucky enough to interview him. I wish I had that opportunity to meet him and interview him. But I've watched enough races where he was winning or battling hard. And I still think back to that day when he had the accident in '94 and died. And what an amazing talent he was, and robbed of, so much he could have done in his later years.
Yeah, I don't even think it's because it's posthumous. I don't even think it's because of after the fact and what happened. I personally feel that he would, even if he was still here today, he would still be considered by the majority, by the many, that he's still the GOAT, despite the not winning 7 championships. That doesn't matter because those times were different anyway. The cars were very different. The reliability was very different. There were different times. You can't compare motor racing Formula One back then to today, because the reliability is just so much more supreme now. But just the pure racer, and if you got into racing or get into racing because you have that pure racing spirit as well, I think that's why the majority of people choose Ayrton, because they can associate, they can see what's within them. I'm not a racing driver, but I'm a racer at heart, so I can see it. He's my GOAT as well.
That's good. Tick off the list.
My GOAT too.
Winning.
And let's not get emotion.
No.
So going back to the idea of rookies, and you've also mentioned, females and women coming into motorsport, and you've wrote a little bit about Susie Wolff there, being, at the head of the F1 Academy, and what she's doing for motorsport that goes way back a few years when she began the programs. And what are your thoughts on Susie and the programs that she's been laying out over the years?
She's quite phenomenal, really. And there's so many rumours. I haven't had the chance to speak to her yet, but there are so many rumours about, will she run for FIA president? And wouldn't that be a massive difference? I mean, couldn't be more different. And I kind of hope that happens, but that's not it's not my battle. And I don't know if that's true or not. And I shouldn't really talk about rumours. It's not what the BBC do, but I do still. And, you know, she, through her driving career, she fought against the odds. And she's had great support throughout her career. And it's no wonder, because she's a trailblazer and she's leading the way for women, children, girls to come through and succeed. And, you know, Girls on Track, which I'm still part of, one of the inclusion ambassadors. I'm very proud to be part of that Motorsport UK initiative now. And she doesn't just do something and move on. She does something and leaves a legacy project behind that stands up without her being there, which is really impressive to do. And now she's gone on and, you know, she's part of F1 with the F1 Academy, and she will succeed. At some point in time, we will be having a conversation about the first female F1 driver for decades. And really, a lot of that is down to her and her persistence and her will not to give in, not to give up, and to really push things forward. I just think she's such an inspiration.
Do you have your eye on anyone particular at the moment regarding the girls?
I think they're all too young. I don't know enough about the Carters coming through right now to be able to pick one out. And I think it will take that long, unfortunately, for someone to develop and do all the things that the boy Carters are doing. Because that's what they need to do. It's a numbers game, and you need more to come up through the system and shine. So I don't think anyone that I currently know of will get there in time. I'm ever hopeful, but I think it's going to take quite a while.
I'm a big fan of Alicia Palmowski, and she's just joined the F1 Academy with Red Bull. And she was in GB4 last year, so I was able to interview her a few times last year and get to know her. And from what I can see on track, she finished vice champion as well in that series. Cool. Quite close to the championship too, not too far away, you know, a few more points in her direction and she would have been champion. And my gut feeling from watching her on the track and just watching how she works away from the track and how she, you know, analyses the car, the track, you know, what she's doing on the track. I was privy to being in a driver meeting with her, an engineer meeting with her, and I just have this feeling that she may very well pop up there. I mean, I know we have Abby, you know, but my personal gut feeling for Alicia, I'm a big champion of her. So, yeah, hopefully we'll see her in F1.
And how do you see that path unfolding with, if she's doing F1 Academy this year, what's her next move?
It will probably be what Abby's doing. She'll probably go to GB3 next, because that car's like, they've actually got a brand new car this year anyway in GB3, which is more comparable to the single seaters to the Formula 3 car. So it's not going to be as big a leap up to Formula 3 for them, which I think some of the drivers can have struggled with. Some very talented drivers have struggled with that leap in the past. So this new GB3 car is faster, better, and if she then goes to GB3 next year, if that's her plan, if that's her path, then the year after she'll be in Formula 3. She could even leap straight up to Formula 2, because we've just got John Bennett that's done that exact same thing. He's come out of he's come out of GB3 and gone straight to Formula 2 just because of an opportunity, a door opened for him, and he's taken it, and I'm quite excited to see what John can do this season.
Exciting.
So yeah, who knows? Alicia might be up there in a couple of years, not to F1, but certainly, you know, in the support series on the same tracks. Now we'll see. Going back to old times, and you've mentioned Sir Frank Williams, and we can't have a chat about your book without speaking about Sir Frank. And another quote that I'm taking, you said that there wasn't a single person in the paddock who didn't have a special memory of him. What's your special memory?
So many. He was just such a formidable character, and always had a glint in his eyes. And bearing in mind all the challenges that he must have faced being in a wheelchair, being a quadriplegic, the fact that he still smiled and was still up for the fight every weekend. But I think the weekend that Pastor Maldonado won in Barcelona, he turned 70 that weekend as well. There was a fire after at the track in the Williams garage. It was just a crazy weekend, but seeing that team celebrate the win was something very special.
Yeah, I recall again in Australia 21 years ago. I don't know how that happened because I'm only 21 now, so
very early memory.
And I was invited. I was as a guest of Williams, and it was incredible to meet him and to. Sorry, it's all right. And it was incredible to meet him. And despite his condition, he didn't see it as any kind of obstacle, and he was certainly not ashamed, didn't hide it. He was being transferred from the stand-up wheelchair that he had into the sit-down wheelchair at the time. And one of the times I went into the garage, and I was making my excuses to leave, and he said, no, you stay, you're welcome to stay as long as you want. And I just thought that was absolutely magical. That's my memory. Hope you don't mind me sharing.
No, not at all. Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Talking about conditions, and you've already mentioned your stroke that you had in 2022. And if you don't mind, sort of briefly talking about that, was there ever a time when you thought you might not be able to come back to work, to go back to Formula One?
Oh, yeah. Plenty of times that I just couldn't envisage working, let alone working at the pace of Formula One. Even now, I doubt myself of, can I actually do this? Can I do a full race weekend? Because they are full on. You're working Wednesday, Thursday, through to Sunday evening, and you do not stop. We stop a bit for going to bed, but it's a full-on experience, and there's so much information. And with F1, you can never have too much information. So constantly searching to find out things, to speak to people, to get good sources, to network. It's just full on. So I didn't really believe I would be able to get back. Having a stroke is such a bizarre thing to happen, because you think that strokes only happen to people who are older, but that's totally incorrect. 1 in 4 strokes happens to someone of working age, and it's not a subject that's addressed at all. And there needs to be more education about strokes, what to look out for, what to do if you think someone or you are having a stroke, because with a stroke, every minute matters. The brain is being consumed by the lack of blood flow and oxygen to it. So yes, there were plenty of times that I thought I wouldn't get back. The community, the motorsport community, were amazing, and they really supported me, and the media and broadcasting fraternity, I suppose. But I still can't quite believe it. But I had to work very hard to get to even this point where I know my speech isn't perfect. I'm already thinking I'm quite tired, because more things going on in your world takes it out of you. But I'm determined to fight that corner and say, you know what? Yes, I had a stroke, but yes, I'm still a proper human, fully functioning, not quite, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to come back from, but yeah, I'm determined.
Yeah. I think the biggest effect can be the fatigue, can't it? Because physically, you're quite capable of doing full days of work. A lot of people are. You're a human and you're physically capable, but it's the mental fatigue. It's more the tiredness, really, and then that, of course, then affects things like the speech. And you have come a long way, though. From meeting you face to face the first time in the paddock, which was almost 2 years ago, 18 months ago at Silverstone, and the difference in you from then to now goes to show that you can progress anyway. You know, you can, with a lot of hard work and a lot of help and support, almost come back to some almost normality. And you know, you're astonishing, and I'm really happy to be here and to see that you've improved so much.
Oh, thank you.
And that being said, do you have any advice for anybody out there that has disabilities or might have conditions, where they would love to also have a career in motorsport or Formula One? Is there anything that you can say maybe that can encourage somebody?
I think what I've learned through this is that every condition, disability, affliction, illness is very different. And it looks very different when you're in it and when you're around it. And it would be wrong for me to say, oh, you can do this, you've got it. And I hate it when people say, you've got it, because actually, maybe you haven't. Maybe that day you don't have it, and all you need is a hug and for someone to say, you don't have to have it today. Today, you can just put it to one side. You can have it tomorrow or in the future. So I think just strive to find your inner peace. And if that involves working your butt off to get back to a paddock, or to get back to some form of work, or just to be able to open a laptop and look at it for a few minutes and try and type or whatever. You know, I can't sit here and say how to recover. I can just say, you know, you are supported. There are people around you who are cheering you on. And if you don't have that network of people who are cheering you on, find it. Go online, get help, and find those people who will be, you know, your network and your people, and they'll help you.
Well, absolutely. You're a living testimony, and this book is absolutely, you know, a living testimony to what somebody can do. I enjoyed this very, very much. I'm going to show it off. Buy the book. I love it because it's alphabetical. It's not chapter. You can put it down and pick it up. You don't need to remember what you've just read. You don't need to follow a flow. It's perfect because it is alphabetical, and there's some really great information in here that isn't confusing. You've explained things really, really easily, such thing as DRS, for example. You know, when sometimes you might not be able to understand what that is if you're a new fan, you know, and you've explained this perfectly. So I would recommend that people get this book. So if people are going to get your book, Jenny, where can they get your book from in the UK?
Well, all good bookshops might have it if they've not sold out. I know Waterstones have been stocking it, and it's available on online shops wherever you get your.
Sell it as
yes,
well.
they do, and they've got a good deal coming up. So if you want a good deal, you can go there. And we've also got something special coming up on the 18th of March, I think, where we've been selected. My book. I say we, it's me. My book has been selected to be part of a special Amazon sale. So it'll be on special on the 18th of March, and at a reduced price for, I think, the audio version. I need to get the real facts of that for you. But yes, something special coming up on Amazon on the 18th of March, kind of in line with the start of the F1 season. And
you've just launched in Australia
as
well.
Can you believe it? Yes. So there's links on my Instagram of where to find it if you're in the UK, if you're in Australia, all the bookshops and the deals that are out there. So please go onto my Insta and have a look. And I'm sure we will put something up on here. I'm looking over at you.
Yeah.
We'll definitely
there are people behind
amazing.
the cameras.
You can follow me at Jennie.Gow. That's JENNIE.Gow, which is GOW. And yeah, you can find all my Insta stuff on there ahead of the new F1 season.
Absolutely. And just one final thing, you are doing a book signing as well, aren't you?
I am. I'm really excited. It's kind of an evening with at Waterstones in Guildford on the 20th of March in the evening. So nice for anyone who's just finished work. Come along, meet me, and I will regale you with great F1 anecdotes, stories, facts, and a little bit extra of what's in the book. Yeah, I'll be there to sign books and just meet people, because I found this really good in that I've actually been able to go out and meet fans, and I never get to do that at tracks. I'm always too busy, and I feel terrible that I don't go and say hi to people or meet the F1 community, which is so great. So this has given me a chance to really go out there and meet more people and find out what fans think about things. It's not about me. I'm just there as a mouthpiece to represent what fans think, what drivers think. You know, my opinion is worth very little. I'm just trying to broadcast what other people's opinions are. So yeah, hopefully you can come along, say hi, and buy a copy of the book.
Absolutely, buy a copy of the book. Well, Jennie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure for me.